All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar on federal student loan forgiveness. My name is Brandy Gros, and I am the Financial and Student Support Specialist for the Compete LA program. And we actually did this webinar yesterday for some of our UL staff, the faculty members, and it was a really great informative session. They were able to ask really kind of direct questions about their certain situations. It was a small group as it is today. So we really like the small intimate group so we can really get to some of those burning questions that you may have. Dr. Bolton will mention how finances is personal. So we may get a little personal, but that's how you get the best out of these type of webinars where you can take the information and apply it to your situation or tell a family member or a friend about what you learned today. So that's our intent. You can definitely ask questions in the chat. I will be monitoring those questions and we will be stopping periodically to get to some of those questions. So please feel free, don't be shy to ask any questions that you have. We will be dropping some links. There are some links that have already been placed in the chat, but we will be posting those again throughout the conversation. So today's webinar is geared towards our Compete LA students. I am one of 5 coaches. We have a great team of coaches that really advocate for our coaches, and just want to give a quick shout out to some of the coaches that are on the call: Melissa Stafford, Mary Love, and Julia. Thank you all for participating. Clarence is another one of our coaches who couldn't be here, but that's our coaching staff at Compete LA. And we also have Katie Dawson, who is our director and oversees the Compete LA program on the call. She's also co-hosting and will be helping facilitate this webinar. So have a real great group of our Compete LA staff to represent for the program today. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Bolton, who will introduce himself and lead us into our webinar.
Thank you, Brandy. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Again, as Brandy mentioned, let's make this as interactive as possible. I've got prepared remarks, prepared slides, but if you have questions, if certainly the coaches, you are seeing situations that I'm not seeing, and so if you and our students obviously too, feel free to redirect anything that we're talking about to personal situations. We're not going to force you to be personal, but we want to give you that opportunity. So please don't be shy. So I'm going to also share my slides and we'll get going. So this is us. This is what we're trying to do. Again, federal student loan forgiveness is the topic. What we'll see in 4 or 5 slides is the general program that we're talking about is about more than just loan forgiveness. There are several components to the student loan initiatives that were announced 2 months ago, and we'll address all 4 of those. The loan forgiveness is maybe the headline feature that maybe has the biggest short-term impact to students and graduates, but there's a number of other programs, including repayment, related repayment, that might be helpful to know, if not immediately, certainly in the future once you're in repayment. So Brandy Gros, introduce yourself. You can reach her at brandy.gros@ulsystem.edu. I think the more specific questions about your situation, PLA, re-engaging, getting through school, that's what the coaches are for. That's what Brandy's for. I'm Brian Bolton. I'm a finance professor at UL Lafayette. If you have more general personal finance questions about your situation, about paying for college, about this student loan forgiveness, I can try to help you and address that. Brian.bolton@Louisiana.edu. I got my website listed there. We'll put that link also in the chat throughout the session. As Brandy mentioned, finance is personal. We have 10 people on this call. We all have different situations. We're coming from different backgrounds. We have different careers. We have different education situations, and our financial situations are going to be different as a result too. And so while I'm going to present kind of the structure of the student loan forgiveness program that may or may not apply to you, and your situation may be different. And so we want to try to keep this, or have the opportunity to make this as personal as you want, or redirect it towards your situation. As Brandy mentioned, we had a similar session yesterday, and there were some great personal questions about the public service loan forgiveness program, the pause, about some loans that were 20 or 30 years old. So feel free to ask personal questions, and we'll address those if we can. If not, we'll follow up. What we're really trying to do through these financial wellness programs is find your happiness, help you create your happiness through education, through careers, through whatever. And there's a lot of tension between short-term and long-term goals, and we want to try to find that balance between paying for the next semester and obtaining the salary and career that you want longer term. And so when we go through this, we're really trying to balance short-term, long-term, family, financial, education, personal needs, and get to that happiness that you want. And what you want is different from what I want. And so when we say finance is personal, it really comes back to this, our individual personal values, goals, and certainly situations. I like to use a lot of quotes in these sessions. And the one in the top left is arguably my favorite, the one I use the most, that a goal without a plan is just a dream. And we all have goals, we all have dreams, but what we're really about, or what we're trying to provide through these programs, is some kind of structured plan, or help you understand what plan options might be available to get from point A to point B, to get from where you are today to where you want to go to get to your goal, so that your goal is actually a plan, not just a dream. And the student loan forgiveness can be a significant part of that, in helping you get to where you want to go and have more control over your financial future. When we go through these sessions, we always start with values and goals. That's where we want to get, but in order to get there, we have to understand where you are today in your current situation, your education, career, family situation, financial situation. And then we come up with a plan, and the plan can be investing, budgeting, taxes, insurance, and other features. Really, the focus today is on debt management and the student loan specific characteristics that may be available to you either immediately or longer term over the next, as you begin, you complete school and enter repayment, or whatever the case may be. So that's our focus, but to me, it's important to remember this is one component of a holistic financial plan and really educational experience that you're trying to create. Here's the infographic that the Biden administration, the Department of Education, introduced 2 months ago yesterday. And maybe you've seen this. It's a nice infographic. I think it's highlighting the stuff that's going to be the most attention grabbing, the debt forgiveness. It's also reminding us there in the middle, student loan pause is extended one final time through the end of the year. So maybe that's bad news. The debt forgiveness is probably good news for many people. The student loan pause is probably bad news for some people. And then there are two components to repayment based on income, based on your careers. And so this is the infographic. It's short, it's sweet. What we're here today to do is really outline what kind of the fine print that's not included in this infographic. We are not here today to discuss student loan forgiveness as a policy, the politics of it, the fairness, the who's going to pay for it, tax implications, anything, growth implications, opportunity implications, social implications. That's not why we're here. We're here to discuss kind of the nuts and bolts of what has been proposed and what we think, as of today or past couple months, is going to be effective. So we can have those conversations in different forum. Today, it's about kind of the fundamentals of the program. We're here to discuss this policy to you as employees, students, former students, advisors, parents, faculty, and obviously Compete LA students and advisors. We're here to help you understand the proposed changes. Changes are opportunities with the debt forgiveness, but also in repayment. As I mentioned, the student loan pause is going to be ending this year, and so that may create some responsibility and some changes to our budgeting beginning of next year. And so we just want to understand kind of everything that's in this proposal. 2 months ago, when Katie Dawson and I started talking about, when the proposal came out of the policy, the infographic top left came out on August 24th, we started talking about doing a session like this. And she kept reminding me, let's wait until it becomes more certain, or we're more confident what it is. And we finally scheduled these sessions yesterday and today, been on the books preparing. And then last week, we had a court order to temporarily pause debt discharge. And so this statement is from Federal Student Aid website, studentaid.gov. The links we'll have in the chat, and they're reminding us the application is open. So we'll walk through the application. You'll see that the application, how to walk through the application, should take 2 to 3 minutes. It is open. You can apply. You can get in. You can kind of register your application. But due to a court order, debt discharge, debt relief has been paused. And so the Department of Education is saying we are temporarily blocked from processing. We encourage you to apply if you are eligible. Brian Bolton would say, apply even if you may not be eligible. Let the Department of Education figure it out. So if you think you might be eligible, please apply and get in the queue and get registered. The Department of Education will review applications, determine eligibility, and then quickly process discharges. Discharge means debt forgiveness. When they are able to do so, you will not need to reapply. You can reapply today once, get it done, wait, cross your fingers, hope, and see what happens with the legal process, challenges, court orders, whatever else may become a part of this process. So we're going to continue as if the policy proposed on August 24th will become official policy. We're aware that this pause is going on, but we're also aware that we can still apply. The application process is open. The infographic in the top left, short and sweet, but you dig deeper and it has 4 components. And the 4 components, the way I see it, are debt relief, the $10,000 or $20,000 relief that's being offered. The issue that I mentioned, the payment pause, is ending at the end of this year. And then two issues related to repayment. Public service loan forgiveness, PSLF, a one-time opportunity for enhanced enrollment. We'll go through that in some detail. And then income-driven repayment that has an enhanced structure. So it's not a one-time opportunity. Both public service and income-driven repayment, these have existed for a while as far as repayment. Income-driven, the restructuring there is presumably going to be permanent. Public service loan forgiveness is arguably the most generous repayment plan the Department of Education has. Since it's the most generous, it can be the most restrictive. And for the past 11 months, 12 months, there's been an opportunity for enhanced enrollment. People who maybe didn't think they are eligible now are eligible, or people who were not eligible due to their rules, the department's rules, were not eligible, maybe are eligible now. You can get credit for time for work performed, you get credit for payments made, but that's ending soon. And so, or the one-time enhanced opportunity is ending soon. The program itself is not ending anytime soon. So both 3 and 4 will continue to exist. 3 has enhanced features for the next week. We'll spend more time on that. So those are the 4 components. To me, it's important to remind you that the current pause only affects debt relief. The other components are continuing as announced, as planned. No changes, no challenges to the payment plan or the repayment plan. So we're going to continue on for the next little bit talking about all 4 of these, and we're going to assume the debt relief, certainly the application exists, and you can apply. We're going to assume the debt relief happens eventually, presumably, as proposed. So let's start with that. Debt relief, this is, again, the headline number. The Department of Education announced they are offering $10,000 to $20,000 of federal student loan debt relief, up to $20,000 or $20,000 if you went to college on Pell Grants, $10,000 if you did not receive Pell Grants. I think the wording on the right is better. The wording on the left, if you went to college on Pell Grants. Some people receive Pell Grants of a few hundred or a few $1,000s and paid for the rest of college with loans or other resources. If you received any amount of Pell Grants, whether it's $100 or $100,000, you are eligible for the $20,000. So it's not necessarily that you went to college on Pell Grants, it's that you received Pell Grants for college. And so that's the key. If you ever received a Pell Grant and you have federal debt or debt held by the Department of Education, you're eligible for $20,000, $10,000 if you have federal debt and you did not receive Pell Grants. So headline feature, the Department of Education knows if you received a Pell Grant. You may not even know if you're 17, 18 when you received it. You may not have been aware. You can log into studentaid.gov, go into your FAFSA account, confirm, find out. The Department of Education knows you don't need to know. There's no box to check. Yes, I received a Pell Grant. Please give me 20. You'll see with the application that you just enter your social security, your identity, your birthday. They'll link that to your accounts and they know what you've received. Once you complete the forgiveness application, the outstanding balance should be reduced by $10,000 or $20,000 within 4 to 6 weeks, pending the court order and that pause being lifted. Nobody will receive a check, so you're not going to get cash for this. You will only see the balance changed in your online account or your statement. It's important to note, and I think I have this in another slide, if your balance is less than $10,000, you will only receive forgiveness up to the amount of the balance. So if your balance is $7,000, your relief will be $7,000, not the full 10. So nobody's going to get cash. We are at the end of October 2022. You have 14 months to apply. The application is open. I would encourage you not to wait. Go ahead and get registered this week or today, and then let the process take its course. But if you're not ready to apply for some reason, you do have until the end of next year, 2023. Some people have made payments, reducing their loan since March 2020. And that's a key date because in March 2020, when COVID became a pandemic that was shutting down universities and companies and everything else, the Department of Education put a pause on all outstanding balances, all outstanding payments, interest accruals. And so if you have federal student loan debt in March of 2020, the balance has not increased unless you've added debt to it, but it has not increased through interest accruals since March 2020. Some people have continued to make payments. You didn't have to make a payment since March 2020, but many people did. If you did make a payment, you can get those payments refunded. And I would encourage you to contact your servicer. The servicer is the entity that's between you and the Department of Education. They handle payments, they process payments. They're your main communication source for handling your debt repayment. You can contact your servicer and get a refund effectively back to where your loan was in March 2020. You may or may not want to do that, but I would certainly encourage you to do that if your balance has dropped down below 10,000 or 20,000 if you have Pell Grants, right? Because if your balance was 12,000, you paid it down to 8,000, and your balance today is 8,000, you get forgiveness, you're only going to get forgiveness on the 8,000. You want the full 10,000. And so if you get a refund back up to 10,000, you'll get forgiveness of the full 10,000. And this either should be a check or some online credit otherwise from your servicer if you get the refund. But the refund, again, is only eligible if you've made payments reducing the balance since the pause began in March of 2020. Studentaid.gov says the payments will be, the refunds will be handled automatically. Hopefully that's right. If that's not right, then I would encourage you to handle that yourself. Melissa's asking, would a student reach out to the lender to make that request? Their point of, so I would say the servicer, which is effectively the lender, since this debt is owned or held by the Department of Education, the servicer is going to be the main point of contact, and they should, they're the entity, the financial institution that will be handling the refunds. Yeah. So, and so let's say your balance was 35,000. And you in the past, since March of 2020, you reduced the balance from 35 to 25. that case, you don't need to get a refund. You can, but you don't necessarily need to. It's not going to affect your forgiveness. You still get the full 10 or 20,000 if your balance is over that limit. But if your balances drop below, then you might want to get, you definitely want to get the refund, so you get the full 10,000 or 20,000 of relief. If you have multiple loans with the Department of Education, this is common, right? You get different loans for undergrad to grad or different times in your life. You do not get to choose the priority. You do not get to choose where the 10,000 or 20,000 goes. Your servicer does not get to choose. You don't get to say, I want it to go to these loans and get rid of these loans first. The Department of Education has a schedule they've determined in a pecking order. In theory, they've set this schedule so that the highest interest, most punitive, if that's the term, most costly loans will get relieved first. So, for example, the first loans to get relieved will be any that are defaulted. If you have loans that you've defaulted on, those will get relieved first. Those are the biggest anchor to your Department of Education account. And then I'll go down the pecking order to relieve highest interest rate, most burdensome loans that you have. So hopefully they do right by you. I think in general they will, maybe not for everyone, but for most part, this schedule looks like it's going to work for most people. Normally when we get a benefit, we have to pay taxes. So whether it's you getting a $20 Starbucks gift card from your boss or getting $10,000 of debt forgiven, normally we have to pay taxes. Not in this case. Not at the federal level. We should not have any tax implications from this. The Department of Education, Biden administration made sure to include debt forgiveness as part of the 2021 American Rescue Plan. They were planning ahead, and then they introduced this debt relief in August of 2022, and there should not be any tax implications at the federal level. If you pay taxes in Louisiana, you should not have any taxes at the state level either. As of now, Louisiana is not expected, it is not scheduled to impose tax on this, and it would take a specific act by the legislature to impose a tax. We think that is unlikely. There are 13 states where it will be taxed. We are not one of them. When you get to your 2022 or 2023 state income taxes, just confirm this with your tax preparation or your software to be sure, but it should not be taxed at either the federal or the state level. It does not matter where you went to college, right? What matters is where you pay taxes, where you are paying taxes. So Mississippi, I believe it will be taxed. If you pay taxes, state taxes in Mississippi, you might have debt forgiveness taxes there. If you went to school in Mississippi, got a student loan in Mississippi, and now live in Louisiana, pay taxes in Louisiana, you should not be paying state income taxes on that debt forgiveness that you got in Mississippi. And I say 2022 or 2023, just depending on when your forgiveness happens. If it happens in 2022, that's when the benefit would be taxed. It won't be taxed. But if you get the benefit next year, then it's a 2023. So now for some more fine print on which loans are eligible. And when this announcement came out, you start digging and you see the fine print, there are going to be people who are disappointed. People who think that get excited, they see the headline, they think they're getting relief, and they're probably going to be disappointed. Forgiveness is only available for loans held by the U.S. Department of Education. And I say held kind of means issued. So federal student loans would have been issued by the U.S. Department of Education, the U.S. government, and should be still held. If you have a loan that was issued by the Department of Education and then converted or consolidated into private, it is not eligible. It must still be held by the U.S. Department of Education. You can verify this. You can verify who owns the loan on your FAFSA account at studentaid.gov. Julie's asking, some people do not know how much they own, if they are in default or not, or who owns and services their loan. Yes, it should be at the studentaid.gov, the FAFSA account. Full disclosure, I've not had a student loan account for 20 years. And so the navigating FAFSA.gov or studentaid.gov I don't have an account, so I can't see the student or the borrower experience. Everything I'm reading, Julia, is that studentaid.gov account details who owns, who the servicer is, rates, priorities, different loans, and gives the entire structure of your borrowing. And so that's that website, studentaid.gov. You have an account there, or you had an account if you receive loans, and that's definitely the starting place, the place to start to find out what your loans are and the status is. So you are probably not eligible for forgiveness if you obtained a loan from a private lender. So if you went to Citigroup or JP Morgan or some other financial institution, not the Department of Education, not eligible. If you refinance from a federal into a private, you took it from the Department of Education to Citigroup or otherwise, or if you combined federal loans and private loans into a single private repayment package, it would not be eligible. So, I'll come back to the FFEL and Perkins loans, but in general, a federal loan can be converted into private, but once it's private, it's always private, can't be converted back into a federal. And so one of the really annoying parts of this, I suppose, for most of this, if you combine or consolidate, you are making an active decision to take your loan from federal to private. You made that choice, you made the decision. You may not have known, the student may not have known what they were doing at the time, but it would have been an active, positive move, positive in the theoretical sense, to change from federal to private. Not so with family federal education loans, FFEL. These are loans that were issued to family that were federal loans that the Department of Education actually transferred to private in some cases. And so the Department of Education, without your knowledge or even consent, that they had the right to do it, but you were not involved in the decision. The student was not involved. The Department of Education transferred family federal education loans, FFEL loans, from federal to private. Those loans are not eligible. They were originally eligible. There was a lawsuit about a month ago, and the Department of Education said, okay, we're not going to fight it. Those are private. And Perkins loans as well. So FFEL and Perkins, these have not been issued for 10 or 12 years. And so if you've received your debt more recently, the last 10 years, this wouldn't be an issue. If you received an FFEL or Perkins, 2000s or 90s, it may still be federal, but some were transferred to private, and those would not be eligible. And that's really unfortunate, right? So because the borrower did nothing to transfer from federal to private, and now they're going to miss out on this. So that's who's eligible. When, as earlier I said, I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed to learn that they're not eligible. It starts here with the federal government must still own, be the issuer of record for your loans. So just a little backstory that students may not be aware of. When you're 17, 18, you fill out FAFSA, you connect with your university, you just want to pay tuition. That transaction can be part of a longer relationship and flow of funds between you, the loan servicer. Maybe there's a bank involved. Maybe there's some investors, some external investors, pension funds, insurance companies. And then ultimately, in theory, the Department of Education is ultimately who's providing the cash. And I mentioned this, to kind of follow up on Julia's question, Brandy's point about using mohela.com or the studentaid.gov to track down kind of the status of your loans. It can be a bit of a scavenger hunt. In some cases it'll be perfectly clear and transparent. In some cases, if you have multiple loans and some have been moved private and some are still federal, and the servicer has changed 10 times, it can be a bit of a scavenger hunt. Mohela.com, I've heard great things. Brandy is recommending it. Studentaid.gov. You can also contact your universities. Universities may have some record. They may not be the most efficient at tracking and providing that information, but a number of different sources can be involved in this scavenger hunt to figure out if your loan is eligible, if your loan is a Department of Education loan. Will be easy for some people, be a little more challenging for other loans. There are income limits. Forgiveness is only available if your income in 2021 or 2020 was less than 125 for individuals or for 250 for married couples filing jointly. You do not need to provide income information. You just need to check a box confirming, yes, my income was below the limit for either year. So if you made 300,000 in 2020 and 100,000 in 2021, you're good, you're eligible. And so you will be eligible regardless of when you file the application. The window again is expected to close end of next year. Here's the, do you need to file anything? Yes. Some people will receive relief automatically. Assume you're not one of those people. File, go to studentaid.gov. We'll see the application the next couple slides. We've got this link in the chat. The application is now available. It's short and simple. Even though debt relief is paused, the system is still processing. You'll get in the queue. And hopefully that 4 to 6 window will still be realistic if the court order, the pause is lifted sometime within there. So again, some people, the Department of Education has loan balance, Pell Grant history, income information for some people. You may not be one of those people, and you may not have your forgiveness automatic. So go to the application, file the application, and get in the queue. What does the application look like? Real simple. Starts with an introduction of kind of what is it, how it works, who qualifies. Then here's the whole application. Is that 10 rows, 10 lines, and name, social, birthday. Perhaps you have a former last name or a last name that you used when you acquired the debt so they can cross-reference, confirm an email and phone number, contact information, and you're good. So that's most of the application. Again, this should take, what, 2 or 3 minutes. From there, we kind of confirm, review that we're confirming that we're asking for this relief up to 20,000, 10,000 or 20,000. I am that person, and yes, my income was below the limits for one of those situations. So you don't need to provide tax return. You don't need to provide your income. If the Department of Education needs to find it, maybe they'll follow up with you. Maybe they'll call the IRS and get confirmation, or maybe it'll just proceed. So fill in 10 lines, review your form, and then sign. And sign just with the digital signature. Check that you certify that this is all correct, and you're done. You submit this, you should get a receipt. I submitted this. I don't have student loan debt, but I did submit. I got a receipt within seconds, and I'm in the queue. I will be, I think, pleasantly disappointed. Is that the right way to say it? If I get relief, I don't have that, but hopefully I don't get relief. But I wanted to see how the process works. So short, sweet, simple.
Brian, we have a question.
Yeah.
It says, what about borrowers who are in default on their student loans?
These should be the first relieved. So if you're in default, you should be relieved. And so if, let's say you're in default of 25,000 and you had Pell Grants, your defaulted balance should fall from 25 down to 5. So you might still have a loan labeled as default. I don't really know how it'll be characterized after that, but you would get relief for that defaulted amount. The Department of Education is clear about that they want to prioritize defaulted loans. For many people, defaulted loans are a enormous burden on your credit report, credit score, and the Department of Education is trying to be proactive in alleviating that and getting rid of that. So if your defaulted balance is 8,000, you get relief, then that's clear. It's off your credit report. Might be a while before your credit score, credit situation improves, but I say a while, 6 months, but it certainly would help. On that note, I think for all borrowers, whether it's in default or in good standing, simply having the debt relieved will help your credit report, will help your credit score. I can't imagine a situation where it hurts or is indifferent. It should help everyone. And medium term, long term is our students transition to professionals, homeowners, other car owners. That credit score will having the credit score improved will certainly help open up some opportunity. So that's the form, that's the file. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? It's at the borrower level. So one slide I didn't, one point I didn't include in the slide. So if your parents took out the loan, child went through college, the loan is in the child's name. The relief should be at the student, the individual, the child's level. If the parents have 3 children that are in college, all 3 children should be eligible for relief at the borrower level. Even if you're dependents, it's still loans in the child's name. So yeah, it's if and when the pause is lifted, this should lighten the burden for, they're saying 50 million people. I think 20 million people have already applied this week or in the past week. The application opened last week. So I think, they're saying over 20 million people have already applied. Just get in line. Submit the application, get in line and wait. So that's the good news. The potentially bad news is that deferral ends December 31st of this year. What does deferral mean? Again, in March of 2020, the Department of Education, with COVID hampering the economy for a variety of ways, the Department of Education said, okay, we're going to pause repayments and interest accrual on all federal student loans. So if you had a balance of $20,000 back in March of 2020, it should still be that same amount. No interest was added. You didn't have to make any payments. You could. We talked about the refunds. And so that's been a nice, you could call it a subsidy. You could call it a subsidized gift to student loan borrowers as the past 30 months of economic turbulence or chaos or challenge as we've endured that. And the Department of Education decided it's time to move on from that. It's time to move back to normal, where borrowers are repaying their loans as scheduled, and that should resume beginning of next year. So federal student loans, you've not had to make any payments, interest has not been accruing, your balance has not been growing, all that should end, unless your standing as a student does not require repayment, right? And so if you're a full-time student or more than half-time, you should have automatic deferral until you leave school or graduate, until 6 months after you leave school or graduate. So if your normal status as a student affords you automatic deferral, which it does for most full-time students, if not all full-time students, then nothing changes. So January of 2023, nothing changes. You're still a student. You still have your debt. Interest will accrue 6 months after graduation, at which point you'll be asked to repay. None of that changes. This is just for people who were in repayment in March of 2020, have enjoyed the pause for the last 2.5 years, and now that pause will be over and you'll be asked to begin repaying in January. What should you do? Again, contact your servicer just to confirm, if you'll have repayment, what the repayment will be, confirm if interest is going to resume accruing, and just on your own budgeting plan, begin thinking about making those payments in January. I've talked to a number of people who were in repayment before January or before March of 2020. They receive, the benefit of the pause, but that line item, the student loan repayment, they've kind of removed that from their budget, at least their mental budget. And that's going to change in January. And so if you want to stay in good standing, you want to make progress towards repayment, you may be required to resume repayment in January 2023. I think that this was part of the negotiating plan with the Department of Education, saying, okay, we're going to end this subsidy, we're going to provide these other benefits, but we're going to end this for the repayment. Sort of a compromise, I suppose. So that's the pause. Having said that, you should still claim your loan forgiveness, and especially if your loan will be in repayment in January, you want to get your forgiveness as soon as possible, so that your balance is $10,000 or $20,000 lower when interest begins accruing again. And so if possible, apply today, get forgiveness today, or pardon me, get forgiveness in 4 to 6 weeks or as soon as possible, so that when repayment resumes and interest accrual resumes, your balance is lower. I'm a teacher, so let's do some math. Let's assume your balance is $30,000. Your interest rate is 6% per year. Year 1, you'll accrue $1,800 of interest. Year 2, you'll have $1,909. After 5 years, you'll accrue $10,000 of interest. It'll grow to $40,202. Assuming no payments are made, this is just a math exercise, maybe not realistic. But if you claim your $10,000 of forgiveness, your balance is reduced down to $20,000. Instead of $1,800, it's $1,200 in that first year. We're accruing less interest. We're accruing less compound interest on interest. And so adjusting for the $10,000 forgiveness, now our balance is $26,765. That's a savings of $34,37. Maybe not realistic, but the math is here to just remind ourselves, get the forgiveness as soon as possible. We don't want to pay extra interest. We don't pay compound interest on interest to the lender, to the banks. Keep our money, get your balance down. Don't let the interest accrual become an anchor into 2023. Third component is the good news is it's one of the more special components of the announcement. The bad news is the specialness of this proposal ends next week. It's about public service loan forgiveness, and many of us in academia may be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. The Department of Education offers borrowers who are employed by nonprofits, the military, federal, state, tribal, local governments, to be eligible to have all of their student loans forgiven through public service loan forgiveness. This is not new. This program is not new. This has existed for a couple decades. And so if you work in public service for 10 years, again, working at a university would probably apply, and you make payments for 10 years, you are eligible to have your loan balance completely forgiven after 10 years. And this program is the most generous repayment program offered by the Department of Education. And as such, it has had very strict requirements regarding repayments, regarding what employment qualifies. And so a year ago, the Department of Education introduced a temporary enrollment period, a 12-month temporary enrollment period that closes next week. As of now, you have the opportunity to earn some back credit for work or for payments and become enrolled or re-enrolled in public service loan forgiveness in good standing, but that expires next week. So you've offered temporary changes to confirm your employment to receive credit for periods of repayment, potentially that would normally not qualify. We have this expanded, enhanced opportunity. We've got, or we'll put the link to the application in the chat. The bad news, again, this has been open for 11 months, but the Department of Education has not really advertised it as well. Again, the 10,000, 20,000, that's the headline attention-grabbing number. The benefits of this have been far more subtle, but it could be very significant if you're able to get in. Bad news is the changes expire next Monday. After that, I want to be careful how I say this. After October 31st, public service loan forgiveness program will still exist. You can still get in, but it returns back to the more restrictive enrollment standards. And so what should you do if you've been working at a university, if you've been working in public service otherwise, if you've had 3 or 4 different public service jobs, contact previous employers, try to get your paperwork completed immediately. That means to have previous employers verify your dates of employment. And if you need more information on eligibility, pslf.gov, which actually redirects you to a White House site, but the information is there. And the studentaid.gov/PSLF has kind of more up-to-date information on this enhanced opportunity. Again, on November 5th, public service loan forgiveness is still going to exist. It just may have more restrictive, the traditional requirements. Right now, for the next week, we have expanded opportunity or enhanced opportunity to enroll.
And Brian, this
Yeah,
is
please.
one that I like to share a lot with my
Please.
students because it is not widely known, and it has personally affected me. When I graduated from undergrad, 6 months after I graduated, I started paying on my loan as I knew I was supposed to. Worked in a nonprofit for 3.5, almost 4 years. Relocated, got a new employer, contacted Department of Education, like, okay, I have this new employer, I'm going to start continuing to pay on my loans. And they told me that I was in the wrong program for those 3, almost 4 years that I was making those payments. And I was like, well, what do you mean? I paid my loans, the form that came in was like, no, you have to be in the right payment plan, in the right order to be eligible for the public service loan forgiveness program. So I was upset that those 3, almost 4 years of payments were not being counted. And then when this announcement came out, they said that they would go back and now count those years. So I was happy and contacted my employer and got the form filled out. So that's, 3 or 4 years that are now taken off of my at 120 credit payments that are needed. So this is one that I sent out to all of my Compete Eligible students, letting them know that that is now eligible for them. And hopefully they meet that deadline.
Yeah, ditto that. I'm reading what Caitlin wrote, ditto that. I mean, that's the perfect example. It seems annoying and disappointing that it's normally so restrictive, right? That, either common sense or this rigid structure prevents it. But at least you've been able to take advantage of that window, and hopefully, many others are able to too. It's again, it's unfortunate, as you said, it hasn't been widely marketed, or it's not widely known kind of what the program is, what the restrictions are, and what's been available for the past year. But hopefully some people are able to re-enroll, and I think part of me maybe naively thinks hopefully even after November 1st, some common sense prevails in the Department of Education and they allow kind of continued enrollment or forgiveness or flexibility maybe. But, yeah, I don't know what kind of, it's a great example. I was going to call it a cool example. It's unfortunate, but glad you're in. So again, if you can't get in, then the program will still exist after next week, but it'd be great to get in and get credit, get 3 or 4 years or more removed from your 10-year 120 payment clock. So yeah, it's 120 payment clock. I'm calling it a 10-year clock. It's really 120 payments because it's a 10-year cumulative clock. So that's public service loan forgiveness. And hopefully some people are able to take advantage of that in the next week. If not, I'd still encourage many of our faculty, staff, leadership, employees to consider it, to participate. Many of our students, if they go into nonprofit public service careers, should certainly consider it longer term as their repayment option. And if you're unable to get into public service loan forgiveness program, then income-driven repayment may be an option. Let me just mention one thing. The term forgiveness is in public service loan forgiveness. Public service loan forgiveness is independent of the 10,000 or 20,000, right? So everyone can get the 10 or 20,000 if you have a federal loan, and those of us in public service or universities, nonprofits, we can be within the public service loan forgiveness program too. So the example that Brandy just gave, her experience, she may have 2 types of forgiveness: one, the 10 or 20,000, plus the public service loan forgiveness after 120 payments. It is not either or. It can be both if you're eligible for both. So I mentioned income-driven repayment. This is not new. It allows borrowers to repay their debt based on what their income is, in theory, ostensibly to allow students who go into lower paying careers much more flexibility in how they repay. Normally, if you're not an income-driven repayment, a bank, a servicer, financial institution will tell you what your monthly payments are going to be, generally independent of your income or your career. Income-driven repayment allows you to make payments through the Federal Department of Education based on what your salary is. So you have to report your salary, but then your payments will be adjusted based on what your salary is. You report your salary, I think, annually, and your payments adjust annually. You can pay more and to drive your balance down, or you can just pay the payment. Public service loan forgiveness is a special kind of income-driven repayment. Many people in academia will start in PSLF, maybe work at universities for 3 or 4 years, and then go work in in industry for or a company that's not public service. They would still be eligible for income-driven repayment even if they're no longer eligible for public service loan forgiveness. So both programs have been around for a while. They're not new. Public service has this short window. There's 1 year, 1 week now window for enhanced enrollment. Income-driven repayment, they've made some changes to this too, which is more beneficial to borrowers over the long term. And so these adjustments, again, should help lower middle income borrowers or lower middle income professionals after graduation, giving more flexibility in how they repay. What are the new adjustments? So formally, the payments could be up to 10% of your discretionary income. Now that has been reduced to 5%. So the maximum that you can be required to pay is 5% of your discretionary income instead of 10%. The definition of discretionary income has been changed, and so it's figure out the right way to say it. It's easier to have a lower income based on the definition, which means easier to have a lower reported income, which means your payment can be lower. And so that's nice, gives you more flexibility. And there is a kind of a new phase of forgiveness that if your loan balance is less than $12,000, you'll get forgiveness after 10 years of payments, 120 payments instead of 240. So the traditional program, I think I have this on the next slide. Undergraduate loan balances will be forgiven after 20 years of repayments. Graduate loans after 25. If you're loan for relatively small loan balances, if that's what 12,000 is, will be forgiven after 10 years of repayments. So a nice bonus feature if you're making the repayments, and especially if you go into a public service or quasi-public service, potentially lower income careers. It's a nice feature, a nice opportunity to have your debt forgiven after a period of repayment. So, and the final feature is that if you're unemployed for a while, or you have very low income for a period of time, the math may show that your required payment is 0, which might suggest that you should still owe interest, or your balance should be growing. Nope. Historically, your balance might grow if you had interest applying to your balance while you weren't making payments. Today, now after the announcement from two months ago, interest will not accrue. So if your balance is 25,000, you're unemployed for 6 months, your balance should still be 25,000 after those 6 months, even if you're not making payments. So that's a nice feature. It gives more flexibility to more people than we had before. Why should you consider? Again, public service loan forgiveness is the most generous program. Income-driven repayment is very nice too. And some people will enroll in both. Income-driven repayment gives you more flexibility in how much you pay, affording you the ability to choose careers based on kind of personal values and goals, not necessarily have it be driven by how much debt you owe. You can also decide to pay more than what's required. If they tell you owe $200, you can say, well, I'll pay $300, and thereby reduce your balance and pay your debt sooner, potentially. Again, as I mentioned, undergraduate payments after 20 years, your debt may be completely forgiven. Graduate debt for 25 years will be completely forgiven. I say may, should be, depending on any fine print or special circumstances. And then, as I mentioned, with the new feature that if your loan balance is less than 12,000, that 20 years of undergraduate repayments might be reduced to 10 years. But this does not apply to graduate debt. So if you have 12,000 of graduate debt, it would still be subject to the 25-year repayment. These changes are different from the public service loan forgiveness. These changes are presumed to be permanent, whereas the public service changes enhancement is relatively, it's about to expire. These proposed changes in general are for undergraduate loans only. These are designed to encourage more borrowers to pursue income-driven repayment, potentially benefiting more, certainly benefiting more. If you're a student now, you don't necessarily need to do anything other than to consider it. If you are in repayment, you may be able to move into income-driven repayment. Again, these things can be, the structuring of repayment plans can be not that flexible. So some people may not be able to move in, but some may be able to move in. It's nice because it's flexible and it gives you a little bit more control rather than having the financial institution tell you what to pay. Those are the 4 features, the 4 components. Let's talk about some key dates. The application for loan forgiveness is available now, studentaid.gov. We'll put that in the, it's in the chat. We'll put it in there again before we shut down. The 4 to 6 weeks after you apply, the debt forgiveness should be processed and applied. Again, you're not going to get a check. It'll just show up as a reduction credit on your statement. Subject to court orders and other challenges, so the 4 to 6 week may be extended. The skeptic in me kind of likes to remember that nothing like this has ever been done before. Many stakeholders, lots of administrative processes, so it may take more than 4 to 6 weeks. If you've ever waited for an IRS tax refund, it's kind of expect the worst, be pleasantly surprised, or whatever the cliche is. So it may take more than 4 to 6 weeks, but I've also been pleasantly surprised by how efficient they have put this together and pulled this together in the past 2 months. And so hopefully that 4 to 6 weeks is realistic. End of next year, the window to apply forgiveness is expected to close. I say expected, that's their plan, subject to change, I suppose. So get your applications in as soon as possible. Brandy just put the application link in the chat. Save that, share that, real simple, and hopefully benefits a lot of people. So yeah, get in line, get in the queue, do what you can to become one of these first people to get the forgiveness. That's loan forgiveness key dates. For other changes next week, next Monday, the public service loan forgiveness enhanced enrollment or re-enrollment closes. If you missed that, you can still get into the regular enrollment with potentially more restrictive criteria for enrollment after next Monday, October 31st. Student loan pause ends at the end of the year. You may, if you are in repayment, you may be asked to make payments beginning in January. Interest may resume accruing. Contact your servicer, see what their plans for your loan are. You can always check studentaid.gov, Department of Education, in case there are additional challenges, pauses, anything else that we need to be aware of for this process. Again, get your loan application in, and then you don't have to wait or wonder about any challenges or delays. You're already in the queue, just waiting for that relief. Here's a few links. Again, these will be in the chat. The apply for loan forgiveness at the top. I signed up for updates with the Department of Education, I think a couple of years ago. Since this was announced, I think I've received 4 updates in the past 2 months. So they're not going to spam you with a lot of stuff, but they'll give you the key updates when the application is available or a significant change. Your FAFSA account at studentaid.gov should be able to start there to figure out your eligibility, loan status. Other accounts to get the scavenger hunt status of your loans. If you need to get your 2020 and 2021 tax returns to confirm your income, again, you don't need to provide this. You just need to know the number or be aware if the number is below the 125, 100, or 250,000 limits. I would encourage you just to check in with your servicer. You may not have had any contact with your servicer in the past 2.5 years. They're out of practice. You may be out of practice. It might be good just to contact them. And if you're understanding the status of your loans becomes a scavenger hunt, let's start that now rather than wait. And then begin thinking about what you may be doing in January when the pause ends or when you have relief. Maybe. That's what you can do now. By all means, watch out for scams. Nobody should call you to gather any personal information. Nobody can get you to the front of the line. You shouldn't have to pay any fees for the application or for collecting or for any information. Go to the site, .gov, only work with .gov extensions and sites. They're the ones offering this. They're the ones processing this. You can certainly go through your servicer for information. I would not trust my servicer to process anything except for maybe the refund. If you're eligible for a refund, get the application, whether it's for loan forgiveness or public service program. That should be through a .gov, not from any independent site or consultant or anything else. Financial planning should look a lot like education planning. Set goals, analyze our situation, create a plan, execute a plan. This is part of that execution. And so use this opportunity for debt forgiveness or for debt restructuring or for picking a repayment plan to better your financial situation and let your situation work for you and help you achieve your goals rather than work against you. That's what we're trying to achieve. That's what we're trying to do. And hopefully this helps get some better focus, better opportunity for happiness, helping you achieve your goals based on whatever your needs and circumstances are. That's what we're trying to do. Hopefully this helps you get there. Maybe my favorite quote in this world is from Alice Walker in the middle. Don't wait around for other people to be happy for you. Any happiness you get, you've got to make for yourself. In this very narrow window that starts with the application for loan forgiveness and potentially for public service loan forgiveness for loan. So take care of that, take action, wait, hope for the best, and hopefully that happiness you want will come your way through this program. I'm Brian Bolton. Again, if you have any questions, Brian.Bolton at Louisiana. My website there has some resources. The resources are similar to what we just covered. Brandy Gros, Compete LA coach. As Caitlin said, perfect woman, perfect coach for this and helping our students achieve their goals. So you can get specific financial planning questions to me and anything about Compete LA, debt relief. Brandy's probably going to be the better resource. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop recording, and we'll just open it up to questions and conversation as we conclude.